My husband's coworker kept calling our house and hanging up. When I finally answered fast enough, she said, "I'm so sorry. I thought he told you he was leaving." The words hung in the air like smoke. My coffee mug froze halfway to my lips. "Leaving for where?" I asked, though something deep in my stomach already knew the answer. "Just leaving," she whispered, and the line went dead. I sat at our kitchen table, the same one where we'd eaten breakfast that morning. He'd kissed my forehead, said he loved me, grabbed his briefcase. Normal. Everything was normal. I called his office. Straight to voicemail. I called his cell. "The number you have dialed is no longer in service." That's when I noticed things. His coffee mug wasn't in the sink. His work shoes weren't by the door. I walked to our bedroom with legs that didn't feel like mine. His closet was half empty. Not obviously empty, just enough missing that someone who lived there would notice. 3 suits gone, his favorite watch, the leather duffel bag his father gave him. I opened his dresser drawer. Our passports were there. Mine and our daughter's. His was gone. So was the emergency cash we kept hidden under his socks. $1,500 vanished. My phone buzzed. A text from our bank. Large withdrawal alert. He'd transferred $41,000 that morning. Our savings. The account showed a balance of $1,200. I called his mother. "Have you heard from him?" She hesitated. "Honey, he said he'd talk to you last night." "Talk to me about what?" Silence. "Then I thought you knew." "He's been unhappy for a while now." Our daughter would be home from school in 2 hours. She was 9, obsessed with gymnastics and horses. She had his eyes, his stubborn chin. How do you tell a child that her father disappeared like smoke? I found it then, tucked under his pillow. Just a post-it, yellow and small. "I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore." 7 words, 14 years of marriage reduced to 7 words on a sticky note. I called the coworker back. She answered on the first ring. "I'm so sorry," she said again. "I had no idea you didn't know." "Who is she?" I asked, because there's always a she, right? The pause told me everything. "Her name is Veronica. She works in accounting. They've been seeing each other for 8 months. 8 months. While I was packing his lunches, while I was doing his laundry, while I was lying next to him every night, believing we were solid, safe." I walked to the garage. His car was gone, obviously, but something else was missing too. The camping gear, the tent, the sleeping bags, the portable stove, all of it, gone. That's when I understood. This wasn't a spontaneous decision. This was planned, meticulously. He'd been moving things out slowly, piece by piece, while I went about my life completely oblivious. My phone buzzed again. Another text from an unknown number. "He wanted me to tell you he's sorry. He really is. He just couldn't find the words to tell you himself. He'll be in touch about the divorce paperwork." Divorce paperwork. He'd already contacted a lawyer. Of course he had. While I was planning our 15th anniversary trip, while I was thinking about whether we might try for another baby, he was meeting with attorneys, discussing asset division. I sat on the concrete floor, surrounded by the empty spaces where our life used to be. Outside, our neighborhood looked exactly the same. Everything normal, but my world had just imploded. Then I noticed something in the trash bin beside the garage. An envelope addressed to someone I'd never heard of at an address 3 towns away. A rental agreement. Starting date tomorrow. I pulled everything out. Underneath were plane tickets. 2 of them. One with his name, one with hers. Departure date. Next week. That's when my daughter's school called. There was an incident they needed to discuss. Could I come in immediately? My heart stopped. I asked what happened. The secretary's voice was careful, measured. "Your husband picked her up early today. Said there was a family emergency. We tried calling you first but couldn't reach you." I ran to my car, hands shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. The school was only 6 minutes away, but it felt like hours. I kept replaying the secretary's words. "Your husband picked her up early. Family emergency. We tried calling you first." My mind raced through scenarios. Maybe he was saying goodbye. Maybe he wanted one last moment with her before he left. Or maybe, the darker thought crept in, maybe he wasn't planning to bring her back. I pulled into the school parking lot on 2 wheels. The main office was at the front of the building. I burst through the doors, not caring that I was still in my pajama pants and an old t-shirt. The secretary, a woman I'd seen 100 times at pickup but never really noticed, looked startled. "I'm here about my daughter," I said, my voice coming out too loud, too desperate. "Where is she?" The secretary glanced at the principal's office. "Mrs. Henderson will explain everything. Please, have a seat." "I don't want to have a seat. I want to know where my daughter is." The principal emerged from her office. She was a tall woman with graying hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her face was carefully neutral, the kind of expression people wear when delivering bad news. "Please come in," she said gently. "We need to talk." I followed her into the office. My legs felt like they might give out. She gestured to a chair, but I remained standing. "Where is my daughter?" "She's safe," the principal said immediately. "She's not here, but she's safe. Your husband picked her up about an hour ago. He showed his ID, signed her out, said there was a medical emergency with his mother. We called your cell phone 3 times, but you didn't answer." I pulled out my phone. 3 missed calls. I'd been in the garage, surrounded by the wreckage of my life, and I hadn't heard a single ring. Did he say where they were going? He said they needed to get to the hospital quickly. He seemed rushed, but calm. We had no reason to question it. "He's listed as an authorized pickup. I need to call the police," I said. "He's not taking her to a hospital. His mother is fine. He's leaving me. He emptied our bank account this morning. He might be trying to take my daughter." The principal's face shifted from neutral to alarmed. "Do you believe she's in immediate danger?" "I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. This morning I thought I had a normal marriage. Now my husband has vanished with our life savings and our child." She reached for her phone. "I'm calling the police. You should sit down." But I couldn't sit. I paced the small office while the principal spoke to a dispatcher. My mind kept circling back to those plane tickets. 2 tickets. His name and Veronica's. Not 3 tickets. He wasn't planning to take our daughter with him. So where was she now? The police arrived within 15 minutes. 2 officers, one older with a gray mustache, one younger who looked barely old enough to shave. They took my statement in the principal's office. I told them everything. The phone calls, the coworker's warning, the empty bank account, the plane tickets, the fact that my husband had picked up our daughter under false pretenses. The older officer took notes in a small spiral notebook. "How long has your daughter been gone?" "About 90 minutes now. And you haven't heard from your husband at all?" "Not since this morning. He kissed me goodbye and left for work like it was any other day." The younger officer spoke up. "Do you have any idea where he might have taken her?" I shook my head, then stopped. "Wait, his parents. They live about 40 minutes from here. Maybe he took her there. To say goodbye or, I don't know, to leave her with them while he runs away with his mistress." The older officer looked up from his notebook. "You think he's planning to leave the country?" "There are plane tickets in his name. For next week. International flight." "Where to?" I couldn't remember. I'd been so shocked by the discovery that I hadn't processed the destination. Somewhere in Europe, I think. Maybe Spain. Or Portugal. I'm not sure. "We need those tickets," the officer said. "And anything else you found. The rental agreement. All of it. It's in my garage. In the trash bin. I left everything there when the school called." The younger officer offered to drive me home. I rode in the back of the police cruiser, feeling like a criminal in my own life. We pulled into my driveway. The garage door was still open, exactly as I'd left it. The officer followed me inside and I showed him the trash bin. He put on latex gloves and carefully removed the envelope, examining each document. "This rental agreement is for an apartment in Riverside," he said. "That's 3 towns over. And these plane tickets, they're for Barcelona. Departing next Thursday." Barcelona. We'd talked about going to Barcelona once, years ago. Before our daughter was born. Before life got complicated. Before, apparently, he started planning his escape. The officer bagged everything as evidence. "We should check the apartment in Riverside. See if he's there. And we'll put out a bolo for his vehicle." "What kind of car does he drive?" "A black Honda Accord." I gave him the license plate number from memory. "Does your daughter have a cell phone?" "No, she's 9. We always said she could get one when she turned 12. The officer radioed the information to dispatch. Then he looked at me with something like pity in his eyes. "I know this is difficult, but I need to ask. Has your husband ever shown any signs of instability? Any violence or erratic behavior? Anything that would make you concerned for your daughter's safety?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to defend him, say he was a good father, that he'd never hurt her. But standing in that garage, surrounded by the evidence of his calculated abandonment, I realized I didn't know him at all. If he could plan this elaborate disappearance, empty our accounts, lie to everyone we knew, what else was he capable of? "I don't know," I said finally. I thought I knew him, but clearly I didn't. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered immediately, praying it was him. It was his mother. "He's here," she said without preamble. "He brought her to our house. He said you were sick, that you needed rest, that he'd keep her for a few days. But I just got off the phone with my sister who ran into your neighbor at the grocery store. She mentioned seeing a police car at your house. What's going on?" "Put him on the phone. He's not here anymore. He dropped her off 20 minutes ago and left. Said he had to get back to work." "What's happening?" "You're scaring me," I told the officer. He immediately radioed for a unit to be sent to the address. Then he took the phone from me. "Ma'am, this is Officer Willis with the police department. I need you to keep your granddaughter there and not let anyone take her until we arrive. Do you understand?" I could hear her confused agreement through the phone. The officer handed it back to me. "Your daughter is safe," he said. "That's the most important thing right now." But she wasn't safe. Not really. Because what kind of father does this? What kind of man uses his child as a pawn, drops her off with his parents under false pretenses, and then vanishes? Our daughter would have questions. She'd want to know why Daddy left her with Grandma. Why Mommy wasn't answering her phone. Why everything felt wrong. The officer drove me to my in-laws' house. The 40-minute drive felt endless. He tried to make small talk, but I couldn't focus on anything except getting to my daughter. When we finally pulled up to the familiar brick colonial, I was out of the car before it fully stopped. My mother-in-law opened the door before I could knock. Her face was pale, frightened. She's in the living room watching cartoons. I haven't told her anything. I didn't know what to say. I pushed past her. My daughter was curled up on the couch, her favorite purple backpack beside her. She looked so small, so innocent. When she saw me, her face lit up. "Mommy, Daddy said you were sick. Are you feeling better?" I pulled her into my arms, holding her so tight she squirmed. "I'm fine, baby. I'm completely fine. Daddy said you needed to rest. That's why I had to come stay with Grandma and Grandpa. But I don't understand why I couldn't just stay home with you." Over her head, I met my mother-in-law's eyes. She looked devastated. She'd always been kind to me, welcoming me into their family without hesitation. Now she was realizing her son had betrayed us both. The officer appeared in the doorway. He spoke quietly with my mother-in-law while I held my daughter. After a few minutes, he approached me. We need to take her statement. And yours? Do you want to do that here or at the station? Here, I said. Please. I don't want to traumatize her more than necessary. They set up in the dining room. A female officer had arrived as backup and she sat with my daughter, asking gentle questions about what Daddy had said, where he'd taken her, if he'd seemed upset or worried. My daughter answered each question with the straightforward honesty of a child who had no idea her world was falling apart. He picked me up at school, she said. He told me Mommy was very sick and needed quiet time to rest. He seemed sad. He kept hugging me really tight and telling me he loved me. Then we came here and he talked to Grandma for a few minutes. He said he had to go back to work, but he'd call tonight to check on me. Did he say anything else? Anything about taking a trip or going away? She shook her head. Just that he loved me. He said it like 5 times. My heart broke. He'd said goodbye. Not to me, but to her. He'd held our daughter and told her he loved her, knowing he was about to disappear from her life. After the officers finished questioning us, they left to check the apartment in Riverside. My mother-in-law insisted we stay for dinner. I didn't have the energy to argue. My daughter ate macaroni and cheese at the kitchen table while I sat with my in-laws in the living room, explaining everything I knew. My father-in-law, normally a quiet man who left the talking to his wife, looked absolutely shattered. I don't understand, he kept saying. We raised him better than this. How could he do this to you? To his own daughter? My mother-in-law cried quietly into a tissue. She kept apologizing, as if she were somehow responsible for her adult son's choices. I should have seen something, she said. Some sign that he was unhappy, that he was planning this. But there were no signs. Or maybe there were, and I'd missed them too. I thought about the last few months. Had he been distant? Working late more often? Coming home tired and distracted? Yes, but I'd attributed it to stress at work. Normal marriage stuff, not a calculated exit strategy. My phone rang again. The older officer, Willis. We're at the apartment in Riverside. He's not here. The landlord confirmed he signed the lease 2 weeks ago but hasn't moved any furniture in yet. Just some boxes in the closet. What kind of boxes? Clothes mostly. Men's and women's. Looks like he and his girlfriend were planning to move in together. So he was really leaving, starting a whole new life 3 towns away. Close enough to be in the same state as his daughter, but far enough to avoid running into anyone we knew. There's something else, Willis said. We found some documents in one of the boxes. Legal papers. He filed for divorce 3 weeks ago. You should have been served by now, but it looks like he had the papers sent to a different address. An old apartment complex. Did you used to live somewhere else? We lived in an apartment the first year we were married, before we bought the house. That was 13 years ago. He had the papers sent there, probably hoping to delay you finding out for as long as possible. I'm sorry to tell you this way. After we hung up, I sat in my in-laws' living room trying to process everything. My husband hadn't just decided to leave. He'd been planning this for months, finding an apartment, filing for divorce, opening new bank accounts probably, moving money around, all while kissing me goodnight and asking about my day. My daughter came into the living room, clutching her backpack. Mommy, when are we going home? I have gymnastics tomorrow. Gymnastics. Tuesday and Thursday evenings at 6. I'd been taking her for 2 years, sitting with the other moms on bleachers, watching our daughters tumble and flip. My husband always worked late on those nights. Or so he'd said. Now I wondered where he'd really been, meeting with his lawyer, setting up his new apartment, telling Veronica from accounting about his plans for their future together. Soon, baby, I told my daughter. We'll go home soon. But when we finally left my in-laws' house, I couldn't bring myself to go straight home. I drove past the turnoff for our street and kept going. My daughter didn't notice at first, absorbed in a game on my phone. When she finally looked up, she frowned. Mommy, where are we going? I need to see something, I said. I drove to Riverside, to the address on the rental agreement. It was a new complex, one of those modern buildings with a gym and a pool and granite countertops. The kind of place young professionals lived. The kind of place you'd move with your new girlfriend when you wanted to pretend you were 25 again instead of 41 with a wife and kid. I parked across the street. The building was well lit, cheerful looking. I imagined him walking through that lobby, carrying boxes with Veronica, laughing about their new adventure, their fresh start. Never mind the family he was leaving behind. Mommy, my daughter said quietly, why are we here? I don't know, I admitted. I just needed to see it. See what? Where Daddy was going to live. She was quiet for a moment. Then, with the devastating clarity of a child, she asked, Daddy's not coming back home, is he? I wanted to lie. To tell her, of course he was. That this was all a misunderstanding. That everything would be fine. But I was so tired of lies. No, baby. I don't think he is. She cried then. The kind of heartbroken sobs that only children can produce. Pure grief, unfiltered by adult understanding or coping mechanisms. I held her in the car across from my husband's future apartment and let her cry. I cried too, finally, for the marriage I'd thought we had, for the man I'd believed I knew, for my daughter, who didn't deserve any of this. When we finally drove home, it was after 9. My daughter fell asleep in the car, exhausted from crying. I carried her inside, tucked her into bed, still wearing her school clothes. I stood in her doorway for a long time, watching her sleep, wondering how I was going to explain this to her tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. In our bedroom, I stripped the sheets from the bed. I couldn't sleep on sheets he'd slept on, not anymore. I found fresh ones in the linen closet and made the bed with military precision, smoothing every wrinkle. Then I went through his nightstand. More evidence of his planned departure. A new passport photo, the kind you get at drugstores. A receipt from a jeweler for a woman's necklace. Not my birthday. Not our anniversary. For her, obviously. I found his laptop in his home office. I'd never snooped before. Never had a reason to. Now I had every reason. I opened it, expecting to need a password, but he'd left it unlocked. Careless, or maybe he thought I'd never look. His email was open. I scrolled through months of correspondence. Messages to Veronica were passionate, intimate, full of plans for their future. We'll be in Barcelona by the time she figures everything out. One message read, "She'll never think to look there." My stomach turned. He'd been that confident. That sure I'd be too stupid, too trusting to figure it out. But there were other emails too. Messages to his lawyer about asset division, how to hide money, how to minimize what I'd be entitled to in the divorce. He'd been calculating, strategic. He'd moved money to offshore accounts, transferred stocks to his mother's name, planning to move them back after the divorce was finalized. He'd thought of everything. Except he hadn't thought I'd answer the phone fast enough. Hadn't counted on his coworker's guilty conscience. Hadn't planned on being caught. I printed everything. Hundreds of pages of emails, bank statements, legal documents, evidence of his affair, proof of his financial manipulation. I stacked the papers in neat piles on his desk. Then I called my sister. She answered on the second ring. "It's almost midnight." "What's wrong?" "Everything," I said. And then I told her. My sister arrived at 6 in the morning with 3 suitcases of her own clothes, prepared to move in for as long as I needed her. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. "We're going to get through this," she said. "I promise." My daughter woke up at 7, confused about why her aunt was there, why I looked so tired, why everything felt wrong. My sister made her favorite breakfast, pancakes with chocolate chips, while I sat her down for the conversation I'd been dreading. "You know how sometimes people stop being married?" I started. "Like getting divorced." "Yes, like getting divorced. Daddy and I are going to get divorced because he loves someone else." The question hit me like a punch. "How did you know?" She shrugged, picking at her pancake. "I heard you and Aunt talking last night. The walls are thin." "I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry you had to find out that way." "Is he going to live with her? With the other woman?" "Yes, I think so." "Does he still love me?" The question I'd been most afraid of. "Of course he loves you. This isn't about you. This is between Daddy and me. But he left me too. Not just you." And there it was. The truth I'd been trying to avoid. He hadn't just left me. He'd left both of us. He'd picked up our daughter from school, held her, told her he loved her, and then abandoned her with his parents like she was a piece of furniture he no longer needed. "You're right," I said. "He did leave you too. And that's not okay. That's not what parents are supposed to do. I can't explain why he made this choice because I don't understand it either. But I need you to know that I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right here with you. Always." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Can I still do gymnastics?" "Of course. We'll figure everything out. All the normal stuff will stay normal, I promise." But nothing was normal. Not anymore. My sister drove my daughter to school while I met with the lawyer she'd recommended. A sharp woman in her 50s who'd seen cases like mine 1,000 times. She listened to my story without judgment, made notes in a leather portfolio. "He emptied your joint account," she confirmed. $41,000. "Yes. And you have documentation of his affair. Months of emails, photos, text messages, everything. Good. That will help." Illinois is technically a no-fault divorce state, but evidence of dissipation of marital assets can affect the financial settlement. The fact that he hid money, moved assets, and tried to deceive you about the divorce filing itself, that all works in your favor. She took copies of everything I'd printed, then she looked at me seriously. "I need to ask you something difficult. Do you want to fight for this marriage?" "Some people do, even after infidelity. There are therapists who specialize in reconciliation." "No," I said immediately. "I don't want him back. I want to protect my daughter and protect what's left of our assets. Then that's what we'll do." Over the next week, my lawyer filed an emergency motion to freeze all our accounts. She subpoenaed his work emails, his phone records, everything. She tracked down the offshore accounts, the stocks he'd transferred to his mother. She was relentless, and I was grateful. My husband never came home. He stayed in a hotel for a few days, then apparently moved into the Riverside apartment with Veronica. He called once, 3 days after he left, to talk to our daughter. I put it on speaker so I could hear. "Hi, sweetheart," he said, his voice artificially cheerful. "How are you?" "Why did you leave?" she asked flatly. "Daddy and Mommy need some time apart. But I still love you very much. Are you coming to my gymnastics competition next month?" "I don't know, honey. We'll see." That's what you always say when the answer is no. Silence. Then, "I'm sorry. I know this is hard, but it's going to be okay. You'll see." "When is it going to be okay?" He had no answer for that. They talked for a few more minutes, stilted and awkward, before my daughter handed me the phone and went to her room. I heard her crying through the walls. Those thin walls that revealed everything. I almost hung up without saying anything, but something made me ask, "Why didn't you just tell me? Why did you have to do it this way?" His voice changed, became defensive. "You wouldn't have understood. Try me. We weren't happy. We haven't been happy for years. You must have known that. I didn't know that. I thought we were fine. I thought we were building a life together. You thought? That's the problem. You never actually looked at me, saw me. You were so focused on routines and schedules and making everything perfect that you never noticed I was dying inside. So you had an affair. You emptied our bank account. You filed for divorce in secret and tried to have the papers sent to an address where I haven't lived in over a decade. I was going to tell you. When? After you were on a plane to Barcelona. How did you know about Barcelona? Your coworker called. The one you're sleeping with. She thought I knew. She apologized for ruining your life. Veronica wouldn't do that. Well, she did. And then I found everything else. The rental agreement, the plane tickets, the emails where you strategized about hiding assets from me. You didn't just want to leave. You wanted to destroy me in the process. That's not true. Then what is true? Explain it to me. But he couldn't. Or wouldn't. He made excuses. Blamed me for not paying enough attention. For being too focused on our daughter. For not being exciting anymore. As if marriage was supposed to be a constant adrenaline rush. As if 14 years together meant nothing. I hung up on him mid-sentence. My sister found me in the kitchen, staring at nothing. She didn't ask if I was okay. She just sat with me until my daughter came out of her room, red-eyed, asking if we could watch a movie together. We watched Moana for the 100th time. My daughter curled up between my sister and me on the couch. During the part where Moana's grandmother dies, my daughter started crying again. Not about the movie, I realized, but about everything. About loss and betrayal and the way people you love can just disappear. The divorce proceedings dragged on for months. My lawyer was as aggressive as promised, pursuing every hidden asset, every transferred stock, every dollar he'd tried to hide. His lawyer pushed back, claiming I was being vindictive, that I was poisoning our daughter against him. But the emails told a different story. His own words, preserved in digital amber, revealed his calculated cruelty. My daughter struggled. She started having nightmares. Her grades slipped. She quit gymnastics, said she didn't feel like tumbling anymore. I got her into therapy, drove her to weekly appointments with a child psychologist who specialized in divorce trauma. Slowly, painfully, she started to heal. My husband's mother called regularly, apologizing, asking about our daughter. We'd meet for lunch sometimes, just the three of us, maintaining the relationship despite what her son had done. She was a good grandmother. She didn't deserve to lose her granddaughter because her son was a coward. One afternoon, 6 months after he left, my daughter and I were grocery shopping when we ran into Veronica. She was in the produce section, examining avocados. She didn't see us at first. She looked different than I'd imagined. Younger, obviously, probably early 30s. Pretty in a generic way. Nothing special, nothing worth destroying a family for. My daughter saw her before I could steer us away. Is that her? She whispered. Daddy's girlfriend. I don't know. I lied. But Veronica had heard. She turned, saw us, and her face went pale. She set down the avocado and started to walk away quickly. Wait, my daughter called out. I just want to know why. Veronica stopped. For a long moment, she stood frozen in the grocery store aisle while other shoppers pushed past us. Then she turned around. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I never meant for any of this to happen. But it did happen, my daughter said. You took my dad away. I didn't take him. He chose to leave. Because of you. Veronica looked at me, her eyes pleading for help. But I had nothing to offer her. No forgiveness, no understanding, no absolution. She'd known he was married. She'd pursued him anyway. She'd helped him plan his escape, pack his boxes, book flights to Barcelona. You're right, Veronica said finally, looking back at my daughter. I'm part of why he left. And I'm sorry. I can't change what happened. I can only tell you that I'm sorry. My daughter stared at her for a long moment. Then she said, he's going to leave you too, eventually. That's what he does. He leaves. We walked away, leaving Veronica standing alone in the produce section. My daughter didn't speak for the rest of the shopping trip. When we got home, she went straight to her room. I found her an hour later, looking at old photo albums, pictures of our family, before everything fell apart. In every photo, we looked happy, normal, like people who had it figured out. Were we ever really happy, she asked, or were we just pretending? I don't know anymore, I admitted. I thought we were happy. Maybe he was pretending. Or maybe things changed and I didn't notice. I wish I had a better answer. She closed the album. I don't want to look at these anymore. Can we put them away? We boxed up the photo albums that night, along with other reminders of our old life, his books, his records, his clothes that still hung in the closet. My sister helped me load everything into her car. She'd drop it at Goodwill, she said. I didn't need to be the one to do it. The divorce was finalized 10 months after he left. I got primary custody of our daughter. He got supervised visitation, 2 weekends a month after the judge reviewed evidence of his abandonment. I got the house, a significant portion of our assets, and alimony. My lawyer had fought hard and won, but winning felt hollow. I had the house, but it was empty. I had money, but it couldn't fix what was broken. I had custody, but my daughter still cried herself to sleep some nights, missing the father who'd chosen his mistress over his family. My husband and Veronica never made it to Barcelona. By the time the divorce was finalized, they'd already broken up. My mother-in-law told me, hesitant, unsure if I'd want to know. Apparently, Veronica had grown tired of being with someone who'd so easily abandoned his wife and child. She'd started wondering when he'd do the same to her. The relationship that had seemed so exciting, so worth destroying everything for, had crumbled under the weight of guilt and distrust. He moved back in with his parents for a while, lost his job after the affair became office gossip, started drinking heavily, according to his mother. She asked if I'd consider letting him see our daughter more often. He's struggling, she said. He misses her terribly. He should have thought about that before he left, I said. But eventually I relented. Not for him. For my daughter, who deserved to have a relationship with her father if he could prove he'd change. The visit started slow, supervised sessions at his parents' house. My daughter was wary at first, angry, but gradually, over months and then years, they rebuilt something. Not what they'd had before. You can't rebuild that. But something new, something honest. He apologized to her finally, told her he'd made terrible choices, that he'd hurt the people he loved most, that he was trying to be better. I never forgave him. I don't think I ever will. But I learned to coexist with the reality of what happened, to build a life that didn't include him, but didn't completely exclude him either, for our daughter's sake. 5 years after he left, I was doing my own grocery shopping when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Hi, is this her? The woman's voice was uncertain. Young. Who is this? My name is Rebecca. I work with your ex-husband. I think there's something you should know. My stomach dropped. Here we go again, I thought. He's doing it to someone else. He's planned another elaborate escape. But that's not what Rebecca said. He's been hospitalized, she continued. He collapsed at work this morning. They're running tests, but it looks serious. His parents are out of town, and you're still listed as his emergency contact. The hospital asked me to call. I should have felt nothing. Or maybe satisfaction. Karma. Right. But instead, I felt that old familiar dread. The kind that comes from still caring. Even when you don't want to. Even when you shouldn't. Which hospital? I asked. She told me. I called my sister to pick up my daughter from school. Then I drove to the hospital for the second time in our relationship. The first being when our daughter was born. The symmetry wasn't lost on me. He was in the ICU. His mother arrived an hour after I did, frantic, apologizing for being unreachable. The doctors explained that he'd had a heart attack. Significant damage. He'd need surgery, lifestyle changes, constant monitoring. He might not make it through the night. I sat in the waiting room while they prepped him for surgery, wondering why I'd come. We'd been divorced for 5 years. I'd rebuilt my life without him. My daughter was thriving, finally happy again. I owed him nothing. But when the nurse asked if anyone wanted to see him before surgery, I found myself standing up, walking into his room, looking at him lying in that hospital bed, older now, worn down by the consequences of his choices. His eyes opened when I approached. He looked surprised to see me. You came, he said, his voice weak. Your coworker called. You're still listed as my emergency contact, apparently. I never changed it. We sat in silence for a moment. Then he said, I'm sorry, for everything. I know I've said it before, but I need to say it again. I destroyed everything good in my life because I was selfish and stupid. I thought I wanted something different, something exciting, but all I did was lose everything that mattered. I know, I said. Your daughter knows it too. Is she okay? Really okay. She's better now. It took years, but she's better. And you? I'm fine. I've moved on. Are you? Seeing anyone? The question irritated me, as if that was any of his business, as if my life was still connected to his in any meaningful way. But I answered anyway. I'm dating someone, a teacher at my daughter's school. He's kind, patient. Nothing like you. Good, he said, and seemed to mean it. You deserve someone better than I was. The nurse came in then, said it was time for surgery. I stood to leave, but he grabbed my hand. Thank you for coming. Even after everything. Thank you. I didn't squeeze back. Just let him hold my hand for a moment before pulling away. Take care of yourself, I said. Your daughter still needs you. He survived the surgery. Spent weeks in recovery. My daughter visited him in the hospital, brought him drawings and cards. They talked about his mistakes, about the time he'd wasted being someone he wasn't, about how he wanted to be better, to be someone she could be proud of. I didn't visit again. That one moment in his hospital room was closure enough. I'd spent too many years living in the shadow of his betrayal. I refused to spend any more. My daughter is 15 now. She splits her time between my house and her father's apartment, the one he finally got on his own, without a mistress waiting in the wings. They have dinner together twice a week. She calls him when she needs advice. He attends her school events, her basketball games, her debate competitions. He's trying, finally, to be the father he should have been all along. And me. I married the teacher 3 years ago. We have a quiet life, built on honesty and trust. We talk about everything, check in constantly, make sure we're both happy. Some people might say we're overcompensating, too careful, too deliberate. But after what I went through, after having my life dismantled while I was oblivious, I refuse to take anything for granted. Sometimes I think about that morning, the phone calls that kept disconnecting, the coworker who finally spoke up, the way my entire world shifted in the span of a single sentence. I'm so sorry. I thought he told you he was leaving. If she hadn't called, how long would I have gone on not knowing? Would I have noticed eventually? Or would I have remained blissfully unaware until the divorce papers finally found me? Until the bank account was empty? Until he was already living his new life in Barcelona with someone else? I'll never know. And maybe that's okay. Maybe all that matters is that I did find out, that I fought back, that I protected my daughter and rebuilt our lives into something stronger than before. Last week, my daughter asked me if I ever regretted marrying her father. It was late, one of those nighttime conversations that happen in the dark when defenses are down. No, I said, because if I hadn't married him, I wouldn't have you. And you're the best thing that ever happened to me, even though he left. Even though he left. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I'm glad she called. The coworker. I'm glad you found out before it was too late. Me too, baby. Me too. Because as painful as that moment was, as devastating as the betrayal, at least I got a chance to fight back, to take control of my own story instead of being a victim of his. That coworker's phone call gave me that, and for that, I'll always be grateful.